Right, I'm ready. I'm excited. I'm hyped. I'm ready. Mm-hmm. Let's do it.
Woo.
Woo.
Yeah. Right, hello and welcome back to the Cine Skinny. It's the film podcast from the Skinny magazine. It's me, Peter, with Jamie.
Hello.
And Anahi.
Hello.
I spent 33 minutes at the start of this recording session trying to get one microphone at a height that I could talk directly into it and not constantly touch it. So I'm having a great time. I'm really warm. I've had to lose one layer already, and so we're down to the... Basically, let's hope that nothing more stressful happens in the next 40 minutes or so. So yeah, we are going to talk about a couple of new release films. That's the premise of the podcast. So we're going to talk about Happyend, which is the new one from Neo Sora. We're going to talk about Power Station, which is a very interesting documentary about community power and also solar power. There you go, Power Station, clues in the title. And we're also going to talk about some kind of community-minded film festivals that are occurring across Scotland this month. But before we do all that, we will do the customary preamble of everyone just talking about some films that they've seen in the hope that this will engender some kind of like goodwill among the audience. They'll be like, oh, they like films? I like films. I'll continue listening to this podcast. That's the premise of it, and that's where we're going to continue. So, Jamie, you said you'd watch some stuff.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to talk about Weapons yet. Has anyone seen Weapons yet?
No, I've heard a lot of chat about Weapons.
Weapons is great, isn't it? Yeah.
No, I don't watch horror films, but I have read the Wikipedia summary.
Okay, so you know. Yeah, it's probably my favourite Hollywood film of the year, so we'll definitely talk about it towards the end of the year and when we do our big roundup. But yeah, it's just really funny, really creepy.
It's funny.
Yeah, it's like hilarious. It's like a smart, funny thriller with a really cool structure. It's basically Julia Gardner. She's actually amazing in it as well, like just a brilliant actor. She plays this teacher whose class goes missing except for one kid, and then the townspeople are convinced she has something to do with it, and that's all you see in the trailer as well. And then what surprised me so much is I didn't really know much about it, and the film goes in so many interesting different directions. It's actually split up into 5 sections following different characters, and I don't want to spoil who these characters are, but it's so satisfying. It's a film that just constantly surprising me. I can't say how funny it is. It's so smart, so funny. But yeah, so I'll be talking about that in more detail once maybe people have seen it and at the end of the year.
So for now, people should know that it's a horror film that is funny.
It's a film actually it's so much more satisfying not knowing where it goes. So I would say please go along and see it. It reminds me of like a Jordan Peele film. It's like that kind of like really, really creative horror film that is actually doing more than just being a horror film, but it's not trying to be like a fancy elevated horror film either. It's actually it's properly scary, but it's trying to say something about the world, but not in an obvious way. It's like a lot of kind of like smart subtext, I think.
It's also a lot like a Labubu, in that you don't know exactly what you're going to get when you go, but you do know it'll be something good and topical. So.
And I don't know what a Labubu is, so...
Jamie, what?
I know they're a thing. I don't really understand what they are, though.
So there goes my attempt to appeal to the youth audience. So Weapons is good. What else have you seen?
Well, the one I want to talk about was the one I watched this weekend was Guns of Navarone. I don't know if you've seen this, like a classic kind of like old school, quite stodgy kind of war film. But the reason I watched it is because I've just been to Rhodes and it's filmed in Rhodes. It's like it's about like the Greek resistance working with like the Allies during World War II. It's got like Gregory Peck, Anthony Quinn. Well, the reason we went, because we went swimming, me and my husband went swimming, Bjorn went swimming in Anthony Quinn Bay, which is a really beautiful bay in Rhodes, and it's named after him because Anthony Quinn loved it so much, he bought it and wanted to put like a kind of like community there, like an artist community, but the Greeks wouldn't let him do it because that's like crazy. But they were charmed by him and they let him keep the name, so it's called Anthony Quinn Bay.
That's fucking nuts.
So we went swimming there and says, we should watch that film. Because it's one of these films that I'm sure I probably did watch when I was a kid, but it's like, I felt along with like things like, like The Great Escape or the, Bridge over the River Kwai, or all these kind of big, daft, like Hollywood war films, which aren't very good, but they're quite fun to watch on like a really boring like Sunday, which is what we did. We just watched it when it was raining outside. And yeah, it's fun. It's like about, the plot is there's this island in Rhodes that has these 2 massive guns on it, which they need to destroy because like the Germans are using it to like stop the Allies getting to rescue all these soldiers, and they send Gregory Peck, who's meant to be the best mountain climber in the world, not that most believable, to save them all. And like Anthony Quinn plays a sort of mercenary from Crete. Who else is in there? David Niven's an explosive expert. It's very fun, very silly, quite action packed. But yeah, it's that kind of like a bit too long British war film, but great for a Sunday afternoon, I would say.
I love those. I love The Great Escape.
Yeah,
that's
it's
so
like,
satisfying.
Yeah, it's that kind of vibe. Yeah, really, really fun.
Lovely stuff. A good double header as well. Weapons and weapons. A sentence that just finishes itself. Annie, what have you been watching? I believe you said you were in a kind of 90s 90s mid-budget children's film era.
A little bit, yeah. What have I been watching? Not so much like the children's film, a little. Yeah, like kind of things from my childhood, I suppose. I watched The Horse Whisperer. Have you guys seen The Horse Whisperer?
No, it's The Horse Whisperer. You mentioned The Horse Whisperer the other day, and then I went away and thought, is Jennifer...
Is it Richard Gere?
No.
Who's in The Horse
Robert
Whisperer?
Redford.
Robert Redford.
Okay.
He was one of the older
Yeah. Hollywood
handsome
boys.
gentlemen.
Yes, yeah. It's like his...
Get me an old, handsome gentleman.
He like directed it and he stars in it. So The Horse Whisperer was a novel that came out in 1995 and is one of the most best-selling novels of all time. I think it sold like 15 million copies. It is not good. It's actually quite, so I watched this film while also rereading it on my phone, which is a really
Well, you managed to
strange
keep
way
pace with the film.
to consume media.
I think these films are actually quite good, but you just don't pay attention. It's like, this film doesn't make any sense. Back to my book.
No, I had seen the film before. I'd also read the book before. But I read the book when I was not really little, but like quite young at a holiday home. It was like one of those that they would always have.
Oh, they just leave lying around.
These paperbacks.
Yeah,
at
like
holiday homes.
6 years out of date, Lonely Planet Guide to Barcelona.
Exactly.
An inexplicable Bible or some kind of religious text.
Yeah. And then some kind of quite steamy, like Jilly Cooper book.
Yeah.
And then this
a Lee Child.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Goosebumps if you're lucky.
If you're lucky. So that was The Horse Whisperer, and I was just like such a voracious reader that I would read anything. So I read it, and it's just like one of those things that you consume as a child that then has like quite a weird, like haunted place in your brain. So it's about like a little girl at the beginning who's like riding her horse with her friend, and they slip in the snow and a truck hits them, and the friend's horse die. And the girl has like one of her legs amputated, and her horse is like fucking traumatized. And her mother is so convinced that like somehow the fate of the girl and the fate of the horse are like tied together, that she takes the horse to this horse whisperer, in the film Robert Redford, to like help essentially rehabilitate the horse. And it's about like their relationship and the relationship with the girl and and yeah, I don't know, it just, there are like passages from that book that I remember really, really vividly, in that very kind of, like weird things that you read that disturbed you a bit when you were a kid. And I thought I would rewatch the film. It's nice. It is actually quite sweet. I think, there's something about the way that like Robert Redford like makes films. It also felt very Sunday afternoon. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes. It has no business being that long, but it is quite nice.
They don't really make films like this anymore.
They don't. They really don't. And the thing is, it's not good.
They don't make films like this anymore. 2 hours and 40 of bad Robert Redford talking to horses.
But God, I wish they did.
Yeah.
Because it's so satisfying. It just felt like kind of cozy. It's Scarlett Johansson plays the little girl. I think it was one of her first like roles. She was like 13, 14. Like really gorgeous shots of like Montana. The horse is like nice. The horse gets better. It's kind of got like a little bit of, that sort of 90s. I'm not going to talk about orange films again, but it has a bit of an orange glow to it. Do you know what I mean? Just felt like quite cozy. So I watched that. That was quite nice. And then I also watched Raising Arizona at the Cameo, which was really fun. Yeah, really fun. Like literally like live action Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
So goofy. Nicolas Cage in the 80s was so hot. Like he's so sexy. Like he has like his hair is like just vertical through the whole film.
It's a little moustache.
Like his little moustache. Yeah, it was great. His little vests. Anyway, so
I do think that's got the best opening 10 minutes of any film. It's like, it's just so quick and like...
Yeah, so snappy. And also Holly Hunter, no one cries like Holly Hunter cries in films. It's so fucking good. So yeah, those two were very different vibes, but I enjoyed them both.
Lovely stuff. I actually watched a film that will tie all this together quite nicely. I watched The Secret Garden.
Yeah.
Which Agnieszka Holland, is that her name? Who, as you pointed out, last thing that Agnieszka Holland made was Green Border.
It's a very different vibe.
Very different vibe.
Yeah, she usually makes like grim war movies. And then Secret Garden, which is quite grim actually. So
Yeah, and also, is it a war? No, it's a colonial.
No, so it begins in, kind of the British colonization of India, and the little girl whose name escapes me, her parents die in an earthquake.
Yes.
Which will, again, neatly ties into the film we're about to talk about. But anyway, her parents die in an earthquake, so she is sent off to merry old England to go and live in the kind of big mansion house of her cousin or uncle, some kind of like extended family relation. Maggie Smith kind of runs the house with not quite an iron fist, like a kind of bronze fist. She's harsh, but not that harsh. And then the little girl discovers a secret garden that the mother and her twin used to love. And then there's like a little sickly boy. But it's the thing about it that sticks with me is, you were saying that they don't make films like they used to. This genuinely has like really exciting and interesting like physical set design. And like the secret garden itself is a lovely garden in the way that it just wouldn't be if they made it now. It would be bad green screen or like really, really obvious fake plants. It feels like it was from a time when they would just let a filmmaker spend a lot of money making physical props because the CGI hadn't got good enough that you could use it to replace everything. But they'd got far enough along in developing like props and stage building technique that they were like, this looks great. I'm going to put a frog over here and some reeds over here.
Also, I remember that film just looks gorgeous. I did see quite recently. It's like you get blown away by like how this kids film from the 90s looks better than most films made today. It's just like it's just beautiful filmmaking, you know.
I think it's because it was made by a good filmmaker who probably had enough time to do it.
But that's, I mean, just like, but films of that kind of scale don't get made anymore. Like they wouldn't spend that amount of money on a kids film anymore, and it wouldn't look as nice, and it wouldn't be shot in film, and it wouldn't be like, you know, wouldn't have like such a good cinematographer. But yeah. I see her new film is about Franz Kafka.
Really?
It's going to be at San Sebastian, I believe.
Ooh.
Oh, so that'd be nice.
She's still going at it. She must be well in her 80s or something. You know,
Franz Kafka's Secret Garden. Imagine she just like fully thingied back to being like, enough of these sad war films. Enough of these sad films. Let's go into the garden with Colin again.
Did any of you see The Green Border?
No, I didn't see The Green Border, but I do. I generally think she's a very underrated filmmaker. Like all her films are really great. So, but I didn't see that one.
No. Me either. It looked sad.
Well, yes, I think that is a fair point. The Green Border looks sad.
Yeah, it did.
Okay, right, first review of the week, Happyend, which is the debut film by Neo Sora, who is the son of the legendary Japanese composer Ryuichi Sakamoto, who ties into the last bit because he was in Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, a war film with David Bowie. I mean, and that ties into Guns of Navarone being a war film.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it's loose, but...
It's loose, but does it tie in?
Kind of.
It's a loose knot, but it's a knot. Anyway, fucking hell. Like, I spent all that time setting these microphones up for nothing. So yes, Happyend. A group of music-loving high schoolers are getting ready for graduation when a very funny prank that I don't want to spoil for you in the synopsis, although I think annoyingly it is in the trailer, sparked a surveillance crackdown in a very, very near future version of Japan. I would say it's not actually near future, it's actually just reality.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to be like, it's dystopian near future, but actually it feels like this film was just made like 18 months ago and things have progressed in the intervening time. Much talk in this film of earthquakes, both literal and metaphorical. Much talk of surveilling people in various different forms. Annie, what did you think of this film? I liked it. Please agree.
Yeah, I liked it too.
Yay!
Yeah, it's very much, to me, it felt like a film of two halves. And I don't think those two halves, for me, really properly came together, but they are both like really, really interesting and kind of ambitiously done. So yeah, you have this sort of like slightly dystopian-y vibe where there's this prank that's gone wrong, but has gone very right, and then the response to it is wrong. And the school like install, this kind of like surveillance system that is called, it's actually quite funny, it's called Panopti, and I think it's meant to be like teehee for like panopticon kind of thing.
It's you could read it as well as like it's panopticon and penalty combined together.
Yeah. It's just like kind of goofy. And it will like it's just like surveilling these kids all the time. And it will like automatically dock points off them for things that they've done. And also it like broadcasts like on this big screen in the courtyard. So it's very much, this sense of like surveillance made like manifest and legible on like the architecture of this school. And you have this group of kids, a couple of whom did the prank, which like was funny, but also I was like, is this really what has caused this enormous like political shift? It's not that good a prank. It wasn't that interesting. So they just have this huge overreaction to this thing and install this surveillance system. And then the film is kind of about this group of school friends who are about to graduate and about to, turn 18, go into the real world, and how they respond to this new surveillance, but also how they respond to their changing relationships with each other. The kind of it's a group of, how many of them are there? There's like 5 or 6.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. Yeah.
There's a bunch of them, but the main kind of thing follows these 2 kids, Yuta and Ko, I think. I'm probably not saying that right, obviously. But one of them is, I think, 4th generation Korean and just has a much more precarious place within this kind of version of Japan. He always has to carry his ID card around. He always has to prove who he is. There's a sense that he's not quite like considered an equal citizen in the same way. Whereas the other kid who wants to be a DJ, because people will keep DJing until the world ends, apparently. He really wants to be a DJ. He's from like a much wealthier family. And so the way that they also respond to this kind of new surveillance and new kind of political hostility and violence towards them and the crackdowns of the state kind of show the ways that potentially their lives are going to diverge. And I found that part of it actually really, really strong. I really like the relationships between the kids. I really like that sense of part of coming of age is understanding your place within the kind of political world and your relationship to the state and your relationship to kind of the public and public life. And that is often what then determines your other kind of relationships. And that's sort of how these kids are like beginning to kind of either move towards or move away from each other. I thought it was also a really interesting portrait of contemporary Japanese society. One of the kids in that friend group is half Senegalese, and there's a whole bunch of other black kids in the class who at some point also get like basically told that they're not like Japanese enough to participate in this particular like class or whatever, and then they start to kind of resist the school also because of that. And I think there is a real like homogenous view of Japanese society usually in Japanese cinema, and it was really refreshing to see this kind of something that feels like it potentially reflects some of the dynamics and like makeup a bit more. So yeah, I did really, really enjoy it. I did think, like you said, that dystopian part of it, it feels like that's a really big part of how the film is like sold and like positioned, but also it's just not quite enough for me to like really, I don't know, that the dystopian half felt like a little bit separate. The coming of age thing felt a little bit separate. The dystopian thing didn't feel quite extreme enough to like really like dig into some of the politics of it. But like I did think it was, I really enjoyed kind of seeing these kids and their relationship, and it's like filmed really like in this really interesting like sterile still way. Has a really gorgeous score. I liked it.
I think the thing about it's sort of like techno-futurist kind of like light like dystopian future elements is I do wonder whether it's just this thing that this film was written presumably several years ago and that the situation has moved on, shall we say. Because I did see some things in some reviews that were kind of insinuating that it was a reaction to like Shinzo Abe's prime ministership of Japan, but that was actually like a few years ago now. And I think, dare I say it, Jamie, situation's a bit hot on the block right now. Things are changing, brackets bad, in quite a quick way, which then makes doing this kind of like near future stuff a bit more difficult, because you might end up that the near future is kind of overtaken by events outside.
I mean, I don't know. I feel it felt
or disagree.
I felt it did feel quite current, actually. Like you know, the idea of like a state taking like a small thing and turning it into like, you know, like, because there's the idea that,
sorry,
you know, there's the idea that like what, like this school, the headmaster at this school is taking a small event and blowing it up to you know, inflict all these kind of like fascist controls, you know, like, so like that feels familiar, but it's reflected in the state, because it suggested that the Japanese government are using this excuse for an earthquake that might not even be coming to enforce all these crazy rules, which include, like you say, like there's people going around asking for ID cards. They even have like a scanner who can scan your face and know that your ethnicity, and say, oh well, you need a card because you're not like pure Japanese, you know, as how they think of it. So like that seems very current to me. Like the idea, like, you know, look at what Stammer's doing with like you know, like Palestine Action. You know, like that's like it's taken hugely disproportionate measures against people, you know, and using the full force of like government and the state to like oppress people, which is like exactly what the film's about. Yeah, I don't know, I felt it was a really good film. It did make me think, why can't I make films like this in Scotland? You know, it's like, I think part of it why it's like it doesn't, you know, it's not going for like super high tech is because it's quite a low budget film. You know, it's like, it seems like it was made for not very much money, but it's just really creative in what it has. It's really politically savvy. You know, it's like, it is taking all these ideas about, you know, state surveillance and, you know, Foucault theory and all that kind of stuff, but mixing it with this kind of like, yeah, just quite a sweet coming age film with friends who are drifting apart at school, you know, like, so like I like how it's kind of got big ideas, but it treats it in quite a small way. And I think it's an example of, yeah, you can make a film that explores, you know, kind of quite dense ideas, but treat it quite lightly, you know, like and yeah, I thought like the friend group was really interesting. The fact there's also like a Taiwanese girl in the group as well, the only girl, she's Taiwanese, and that's like, again, it's like sometimes because I don't know enough about Japanese society, I can't tell all the nuances that are going on between the group. But yeah, there's clearly, this group is like, are outsiders because they're all different, they're all like not, you know, I think there's only one of them who is actually like, would be seen by the state as like being pure Japanese, you know. The rest all have like different ethnicities or from lower class families or whatever. Yeah, and I think he's trying to dig into those ideas, and it's all, yeah, I thought it was a really interesting and really compelling film. Also, like, yeah, just some cool kids dancing in clubs, you know, like, it's got like, some great club scenes, you know, like, makes like, it shows that actually clubbing's fun, and like, you can see why some kids might just like not, like one of the kids becomes apolitical and says, I just want to party, another kid gets radicalized, and the kid with more to lose gets radicalized. The kid that, you know, like wants to go to university but like is being oppressed because, like Anna says, his family like came here a couple of generations ago. So yeah, really interesting film, really interesting filmmaker, done in a low budget, so it does a lot with like very little. Yeah, I think it should be shown to young filmmakers in Scotland and say, try and make a film like this, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it. The thing I was saying about, like, I just think that it's a document of the present, not of the future.
Yeah.
I think like the music is really interested in it because it plays this kind of really interesting role all the way through. That it is, there's a lot of stuff in here about like kind of divides between different like generations and different people from different backgrounds and stuff. But the like kind of music seems to be one of these threads that it's a point where they all meet. Like, is Yuta the kind of like slightly posher, ethnically Japanese kid?
He's the DJ
and he's like, oh yeah, there's no good music anymore. Like, it's all good in the past. And like, he occasionally bumps into these like adults who still have this kind of like, I think one of the things that's really interesting about this film is it shows the ways that like different generations have different views of what the present and future are like, because he kind of feels quite like he's sort of, like you say, kind of checked out politically, and is very kind of like, oh, nothing new is good. And he meets these like older people who just sort of say to him like, no, I mean, things can still be good. And he's like, no, you're not listening to me. And then they're like, no, but you're not listening to me. So it's quite interesting in that in that way that it focuses in on these kids, but it still shows like that they are only one part of a kind of series of overlapping groups of people that are all kind of being impacted by this, kind of like fascistic government and all this kind of surveillance stuff and all this like general environment of malaise and negativity that will be familiar to anyone listening to this podcast, I would say.
But I think that's what a lot of good, like, see if you watch a sci-fi film from the 70s or something, it is actually usually talking about the society at the time, you know, like, or like even Blade Runner is like talking a little bit about the 80s, you know, like I feel like sci-fi, just the nature of it, like they do tend to be just projecting forward, but from where you are. So they're only taking the current politics and pushing it forward. So you can't really imagine what the future is going to be like. So this film's trying to do the same, I think, like say what's happening today, how might it look in 5 years, you know, like, and I think it does a good job of like projecting how the world is going, to be honest.
I wish Neo Soro was wrong, but I fear that he may be onto something with some of the ideas expressed in this film. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. And I think the rest of us also enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. So that's a recommendation for us. So that Happyend is out this Friday, I believe, the 19th. Yeah. This Friday is the 19th, and it is out then. So you should go and see it.
Just do Letterboxd.
We should do Letterboxd scores.
Yeah.
We should do them. Jamie, out of 5, what did you think?
Yeah, I think it's a good film. It's a little bit loose, I would say. The one thing is the narrative is actually quite, like, it bobs along in a nice way. Like, it's a very kind of, like, hangout movie almost. So I'd say I'll give 3.5. But it's a very good film, smartly done.
Nice. Anna?
Yeah, I would say 3.5 too.
Nice. I would say 4 because I don't. Because of my famous dislike of the half star. And I would also say what I've already said on my Letterboxd, which is I just hope that I like dystopian fiction, and I just hope that my government never uses a comparatively, minor inconvenience and then under the guise of terrorism uses it for a massive surveillance crackdown. But it's all right, because they would never do that.
They won't do that.
Not even once. Right, second review of the week, Power Station. Me and Jamie are on this one. So it's a documentary about activist artists Dan Edelstein and Hilary Powell, and it kind of follows their efforts to create a community power station using solar panels, their street in Walthamstow in East London, and plenty of artistic stunts and some good old-fashioned community outreach. This is playing as part of Take One Action, which is partly why we're talking about it, and we'll talk more about Take One Action shortly. But Jamie, Power Station.
Yes.
A documentary ostensibly about the creation of this kind of community power, interpret that phrase however you will. What did you think of it? We talked a little bit about this beforehand. It kind of is about that, but it's quite interesting the way that it approaches that, shall we say.
Yeah, it's quite a charming film, quite a shaggy film, but yeah, it's got some nice qualities. There's a moment where Dan, who's one of the artists, he says, it feels like I'm in Grand Design, and that's kind of like the vibe of the film a little bit, but not necessarily in a bad way. Because to me it's a film about how like ambition meeting reality, which is always the theme of grand designs. It's like these people with amazing ideas, and they have to kind of shrink to meet, like more practical solutions, but still managing to inspire you. Like, even when things are a disaster in grand design, always come out and say, I could build my own house. And I feel like this is what the film does as well. Even though this couple don't quite achieve their dream, they kind of do some great stuff, and it makes you think, this is really nice. So yeah, I think we were mentioning, I think you said, Peter, earlier, and I totally agree with you that, had this film been made by a different director, like an outside eye, it might be much more interesting, because I think it does need that outside eye, because it is so, the filmmakers are so close to the project and it's their baby that I don't think they're the best people to tell the story about their project. Yeah,
I think one of the things that we talked about beforehand, and I think it's a good example of this kind of thing, when someone is describing to you a night out that they were on, and they describe it with loads of energy and loads of like vibrancy, but they don't actually tell you a lot of the detail of what happened. This film is like that, because it is told by the people who were most intimately involved in the creation of the thing. So they are describing it in a sort of like breathless, chaotic way, where it's very like invigorating, very energizing, and it feels like a good portrayal of that kind of messy but like hopeful energy that goes into a lot of community projects. But you also kind of come away not necessarily any the wiser about the practicalities of the thing that they're describing. They just keep saying the phrase power station and then talking about solar panels and then are getting up to various like interesting and impressive artistic stunts and then coming back down from their stunts and saying the words power station again. Like, and I think that is fine because like actually I think the kind of invigorating sense that you get from the film is the point. It's not supposed to be an instructional film, but I think that, Jamie, you're absolutely right, that were Kevin MacLeod from Grand Designs presenting this documentary about this attempted community power station, I think we would find out more about the practicalities of it, but we wouldn't come away from it thinking, I could do that.
Yeah. I think somebody needs to interrogate them and ask them what their actual idea is. Because like a lot of the film is just based around their fundraising, and it's all quite fun. There is a big sort of extended element where they live on top of the roof for some unknown reason. They just decide it's kind of like a John Lennon and Yoko thing. They're just going to sleep in a bed, but it's actually outside, not inside. And they're going to stay there till they raise enough money. But they don't explain like why that's the best idea. Or they start like trying to get the kids at the local school to get the #1 single at Christmas. So that's all fun, but it's like that's actually the main thrust of the film. And yeah, you're right, you never quite get a sense of what exactly they're trying to achieve beyond the word power station. You know, how would it work in real life? But I think that's fine. Like, I interviewed Rachel Hamada, who's the director of Take One Action. She said something really interesting. It's a film about how messy activism can be, and actually activism doesn't always work out. And I think that's probably why it's such a good Take One Action film. You know, it's saying that I think why people are held back from activism so often, and why I sometimes don't do enough, is because you think, well, what's the point? You know, like all I can do is a little thing, you know, like you need governments to like get involved. You need like bigger systems, you know, like it's pointless. But this film is showing actually, even if you have this big idea and it doesn't quite work out, you can still do something. I feel like it has brought a community together. They do get some, you know, it is like do have some successes. You know, they get solar panels on the school, you know, so like that's inspiring. And I think the fact that they do feel a little bit and they don't quite achieve their grand ambition is actually the inspiring thing about it, is that they still did something. And, you know, maybe it'll take another couple of crazy harebrained schemes, but they might get there. And I think that is the inspiring thing about the film. I also think another thing, if you had a outsider director, you might see more of the community, because I think that was my favourite element, is just the idea of a street working together and sort of like building something, you know, and like and that's the best part of the film. At the start, you meet all these kind of various neighbours who all have different stories. There's one woman who's turning 100. She gets a letter from the Queen, and there's a sense that she's like, you know, nobody speaks to her because, like, you know, the street has changed so much. And so yeah, it's like it's the way this project brings a lot of the community together. There's also a family. I think they're Indian. I can't actually remember where he said he came from, but he came to like Britain decades ago, and clearly he faced some racism and stuff. Like, you know, like they gave him like a really like a nickname at work, just Ali, and that's what they just called him. And he laughed it off, but like, it's obviously a terrible thing to happen to someone. But yeah, you get a sense of this community in this street with all the different stories. And I would have loved maybe a documentary filmmaker to like maybe find out more of those stories, because I really liked when it was digging into that, you know. So like, and as much as this couple's very charming and funny, like, you know, like how kind of harebrained and you know, idealistic they are. Yeah, I would have liked to have seen more of the street. But you know, I think it's quite an inspiring film, and I can see why it's like a really good opening for Take One Action.
Yeah, I think it's got that. It's the classic thing of like putting most of your character creation points into energy and not that many of them into writing things down. It's weird because like they've clearly meticulously documented the entire process. I think it is like we said earlier. It's like this film is as much a document of these two artists and the way that they make art as much as it is a document of this specific project that they're working on. It's also like, it does have some incredibly funny moments. There's one towards the end where they get into this seemingly like out of nowhere conversation about ethics. And the guy says, oh, you know, well, we've been dealing with ethical issues throughout this project. Like, for example, I just recorded that whole Zoom call without telling the guy. Now, was that ethical? I don't think so. But we'll deal with that later. I think that, yeah, they're like clearly a pair of kind of, yeah, activist artists who are keen to do stuff and have worked out that you just need to try and keep, they talk a lot about like keeping momentum up and like moving from one thing to the next and like if you allow yourself to get bogged down in one thing not working, then that can lead to other things. You kind of just have to be like, we're going to get through this one thing and then move on to the next thing. Yeah. So yeah, it's quite like I said, inspiring, invigorating, interesting documentary. I think that there is another documentary to be made out of the actual story of this like idea and this kind of like the actual process behind it.
Well, it's like the whole thing, if you've ever met an artist, the artist is probably the worst person to ask about their work because artists are terrible at explaining their work. I feel like you'd always need an outsider eye with artists, you know, like never let the artist write the little blurb for their work, you know, like it just doesn't work. So, but in saying that,
Jamie coming out hard against artists.
Artists are great, but just writing about their own work is not their best quality.
Yeah. And I think it's also like, there's definitely a very like unique approach being taken here, because how many times do we see this happens all the time that like two people try to make a documentary about the same subject at the same time and end up making the same documentary? I don't think someone else who came along, this kind of like fictive outside eye that me and Jamie have both just imagined, I don't think if they came along they would get anywhere close to making this film that we've just watched. So like there's definitely something in the fact that it is like a unique approach that is informed by like their experience of working on this project. And it's nice to just see someone tell this story in their own way, even if you don't necessarily fully understand what like someone gives like a really good speech at an event and you're like, that was amazing, I feel like so fired up, and then you read it back afterwards and you're like, a lot of these sentences don't make any sense. A lot of this isn't anything, but in the moment you're having a great time.
Yeah, it feels important.
Yeah. So that was Power Station. So it is on tonight. If you're listening to this on the Thursday that the podcast comes out, as you should. It is on the 18th and the 19th at the Film House in Edinburgh. It is on at GMAC in Glasgow on Saturday the 27th. It is on at Eden Court in Inverness on the 10th of October and the DCA in Dundee on the 7th of November. They're all part of the aforementioned Take One Action Film Festival. And it is also doing a kind of UK tour with Q&As and things like that from the 3rd of October. So that is Power Station. It's quite good. We had a nice time. Out of 5, how nice was that time?
Probably a 3. It was really nice documentary, like really inspiring people. It's just a bit shaggy.
I think a 3, but a 3 that is with like a 3 with a salute emoji and a big thumbs up.
Yeah, a 3 is good. And it's actually, just like I say, it's a perfect Take One Action film. If you know, like Take One Action's big aim is like to actually inspire people, and I think actually because like I say, it would inspire people and show that actually, you know, it's fine to fail, you know, but as long as you're trying to make the effort and move on a little bit and do a little bit of your activism, you know, that's sometimes enough. So,
well, hold that thought until after this little bumper sound, because you're going to tell me more about Take One Action shortly.
Okay.
That wasn't a very sympathetic setup, so I'll dial it back a little bit. We're going to talk about some film festivals that are occurring in Scotland this month and in the coming months, much more kind of like community-minded and like kind of grassrootsy than some of the big glitzy film festivals that you see with the red carpets and the big famous people and the, oh look, it's Benoit Blanc again. So we're going to talk about a few things that are happening across Scotland. We'll start with Take One Action because, as we said, it is starting this week. Jamie, you just said that Take One Action is all about inspiring people through cinema and about how when you are doing activism, sometimes, you know, you have to take the little wins and like continue to be inspired going forward, and Take One Action is also all about films that celebrate that.
Yeah, I mean, Take One Action is
you can continue.
Take One Action is a great festival. I love Take One Action. I think it's changed a lot in the last few years. Like when I would go to Take One Action before, there was very much a sense of like at the end of the screening, you know, there would be like a talk and say, okay, now they encourage everyone to go and do one thing. Like that's just literally the title, Take One Action. So like it would be like contact your MP, or you know, tell a friend about this situation, you know, like or you know, spread the word, which is a really great thing. But I think actually the new team are much more about like continuing that conversation. You know, I think like that. Like if you look at the program this year, there's a lot about, you know, like you know, there's a lot of events outside the cinema bringing people together. Like there's a discussion of like I can't remember the title of his name. It's got a really good title, but like imagining a better art scene, for example. It's, you know, and so it's very kind of like imagining things locally as well as globally, you know, and it's like, and it's not just about that kind of one simple action of like writing to your MP. It's about like coming to another screening and sort of learning more. So yeah, I feel like that's maybe the aim now. It's like definitely leaning into the community of Take One Action and sort of bringing people along for the ride, and essentially it's a much more kind of focused on sort of bringing people together as much as like saying go off and do your own thing. You know, I think that's a kind of nice way to approach activism, is like, you know, bringing a group of people together to make a collective, which I can imagine what these weekends will be like. And it's also why they've changed it. It used to be like a week-long festival, and I think the festival as like little weekends in each city might actually be more powerful, because like I say, you can go to every screening and feel like really part of it, whereas if it's a week-long festival, you probably dip in and out. So I think this kind of concentrated effort in different cities will be really effective.
And I was actually incorrect previously when I said that Power Station was on twice. What it actually is, having double checked it, is exactly what you're saying, that they have a screening of Power Station on the 18th, which is the day that this comes out. Go and see it. But there is a kind of talk with Dan, one of the filmmakers, on the 19th. So you can go to the screening on the 18th, and if you feel like energized by that and are free the next day, you can go along to this thing. I think it's at Grassmarket Community Project, where you can learn more about the kind of like process of getting involved in this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's like, I suppose when you're talking about a film festival that is about kind of like activism and grassroots action, you do have to put people in a position where they could do that, rather than just like telling them repeatedly through cinema to do it. Yeah,
I mean, I think that's the thing about, like, I think that's the aim. Like, film is actually a really immediate way to like explain something, but I think the festival also has other elements that takes you along and sort of, you know, so we'll actually show you how to do it beyond the screen, you know, like, and I think that's important.
And I think as well, like you said, film is a very like a good way of like explaining these ideas and getting people like fired up. It's because a film is at the very least like an hour and a quarter. You try holding someone's attention for an hour and a quarter just by telling them something that you think that they should know or should do. Like, it's actually quite, when you really think about it, you might have somebody's basically undivided attention for 2 hours in a dark room where social pressure means that they're not allowed to leave. What a great opportunity to tell them about stuff that they should think and or do.
Yeah, they're also doing a really nice thing.
Let's hope nobody ever uses that for negative ends.
They're also doing a really nice thing this year where they're getting local programmers involved as well. So like, it's not just like that, the idea of the programmers of Take One Action going to these cities and saying these are the films you should watch. They're actually inviting a lot of local kind of communities to put on their own films as well. So yeah, I think it's definitely one of the more community focused festivals. And recognises that actually it's not just what happens on screen, it's what happens off of screen that's important, and the kind of legacy of these weekends, you know, is like a big part of their aim, I think.
Yeah. Annie, do you have anything to add?
About Take One Action,
yeah,
specifically? I mean, yeah, I just think they're really lovely. I think that's so great. I think there can be a real passivity with cinema and with art in general, and I think there is often a slippage where people think if they've made quote unquote political art, or if they've engaged with political art, that is in some way an action in and of itself. And I think Take One Action are really good at positioning this, the act of watching or engaging with art, as part of the first step of a much broader action. That something actually does need to follow it. It can't just be that you're like, I watched that film. And I think that's really, really great. I'm not like super familiar. I haven't seen anything from the program this year. I think Union looks really, really good. Like, I'm really excited for that. It's about a bunch of Amazon workers who became the first unionized Amazon workplace in America, which sounds really cool. There's also something that's being presented by Living Rent about the Glasgow rent strikes of 1915. So yeah, just like really good kind of both, like you were saying, like a local and global perspective, and really good at then enmeshing that with like further stuff.
Yeah, I believe for the Union screening, they're bringing up some people from, I think it's Coventry, an Amazon warehouse or one of these processing places in Coventry tried to unionize and failed. So It's like, I think it's bringing those people up to say why it didn't work. And again, it might inspire people who are in similar situations, you know, how we can learn from their mistakes and sort of, you know, because that's the title, isn't it? Real Utopias. So it's like utopias but real. It's like these imagined situations of a perfect world, but actually it's also looking at the reality of it.
Yeah, and how do you implement it?
Exactly. So like, yeah, so I think that's a big aim this year. And I think that screening will perfectly do that, showing like how this group of workers in New Jersey, I think it is, achieved it, and then speaking with this group of workers from Coventry who didn't quite achieve it, and then, you know, the various, I'm sure there'll be lots of people from like similar warehouses or in Scotland who'll be coming along to these screenings and want to learn a bit more about how they can maybe achieve something. So yeah, I think that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Nice. Well, yeah, Take One Action. Yeah, like I say, it's in Edinburgh just now until the 21st, and then it's in Glasgow from the 25th to 28th of September, Inverness in October, and Dundee in November. We'll stick with one that goes across the country, IberoDocs, Jamie. I don't know a huge amount about IberoDocs.
Yeah.
I just know what it says here, which is on across Glasgow, Edinburgh, and Dundee until the 28th of September. So you're going to have to backfill a bit from there.
Yeah, but I think IberoDocs is the most straightforward one in that it's like it celebrates documentaries made in Ibero-American countries. So like, I mean, that's basically all the kind of Spanish and Portuguese countries in South America, and also Spain and Portugal. I think that's maybe it. But anyway, so it's like it's quite a wide range of countries. Yeah, and again, it's like I think part of it is like bringing those films to maybe Spanish and Portuguese speaking communities, but also I guess just these films that maybe wouldn't necessarily come to Scotland. You know, like I think that's the shameful thing about distribution here is like, you know, how often do you see like, you know, a Chilean documentary or a, you know, like we're quite limited in what we get. So like these films are great, and they're bringing them to Scotland. And I think you know, again, it's a big part of its community and bringing different communities together. So yeah, I think it really falls into another small, like a lot of these smaller festivals actually. You know, we obviously have Glasgow Film Festival and Edinburgh Film Festival, which are showing the kind of big movies with like they bring movie stars here. But I think these smaller festivals are much more about bringing audiences together and sort of like, you know, it's maybe less, the programming is less important than actual the community that's created in that room with the cinema. So yeah, and I think that's similarly, IberoDocs are trying to do something similar to Take One Action in that way.
Yeah. And then the third one I've got on my list, Glasgow Youth Film Festival. So obviously, GYFF, big, probably Scotland's biggest film festival now. But GYFF, how does that relate? I don't know. Please help me. Yeah,
GYFF is a really nice festival. It's like actually quite an innovative. I think it's the first one that ever did it in the world, actually. So, so the press releases say. I'm not too sure, but yeah, it's like they've been doing it for I think almost 20 years. But what they do every summer, they get a bunch of Glasgow kids, Glasgow high school kids between the age of I think like 14 and 18. They just get them together over the summer. They let them watch a lot of films. They teach them how you would program and why you would put certain films together. I think they teach them a little bit about like how to do a Q&A and all that kind of stuff. They've had me in a couple of times to do like things like how you write copy and like, you know, how you like engage with journalists and things like that. And they could bring other kind of people in from like the film industry, like other filmmakers and things like that. And then what they do is they just let the kids loose at the end of the summer to just make their film festival. And like they usually put on something really interesting. I think this year in particular is really interesting. They've got like a really kind of like quite queer political lineup this year. You know, sometimes it can be quite kind of nostalgic and they put on like a lot of like teen comedies and things like that. But this year Crop have put on together a really interesting lineup. The opening film's called Plain Clothes, which is looks like a really kind of sexy thriller about a cop whose job it is to like entrap gay men, but he might actually be gay himself and he falls for one of his targets. So it sounds like Cruising or something, like the William Friedkin film, but like a more modern kind of woke version, if that makes sense. They've also got like a documentary on Rocky Horror Picture Show, which looks really fun. And then they're showing some classic, they're showing like Sing Street, like that really good Irish musical, and they're getting the band who are in the film to play it at the screening, which is again like seems like a really cool thing. Like, so yeah, I think they're doing a really good job.
Have they not also got a screening of But I'm a Cheerleader?
They've got
Natasha Lyonne.
Yeah, exactly. So like, they've got like this kind of this really cult 90s comedy about kind of lesbians who are converted at a summer camp. Again, but like, you know, kind of quite forward thinking for like a bunch of Glasgow teens. So, you know, like that sounds really patronising, but like obviously, you know, as we keep learning, the younger generation are fucking cool and they know what they're talking about. So why am I surprised that they put on a really cool film festival? So.
I don't know, Jamie. Only you can answer that question. GYFF is on the 26th to the 28th of September, which like has an interesting overlap with Take One Action, and I feel like there's probably like an overlap in the audience, and maybe it's just an excuse for people to be like out and about watching films that weekend. And
they put the teens to work, and they do the Q&As and stuff, and like they ask like quite direct questions. There's none fanning around. They literally ask what you want to ask, and they're usually hilarious. So I would recommend that as well.
Wonderful. And then if you want something that's at completely the other end of the scale, London Film Festival begins in October, but they have a how shall I put this? A initiative to get get modern big premieres out to the provinces, where they let art house cinemas across the UK show some, but not all of the things that are on at LFF. Mm-hmm. I believe they call it London Film Festival on Tour, patronisingly.
Yeah.
It's presented by American Express, whatever the fuck it's called. But there are a bunch of screenings at the GFT and at the Film House from the 8th of October. Anahit, I believe you are going to the London Film Festival in proper...
yes.
In the real life.
Real life, yes.
Presuming that you've done some looking through the programme, I might ask you to recommend a couple of things that sound good from the LFF programme, and then hopefully they will be on as part of LFF on tour, and this bit won't collapse in a fiasco of my doing.
So I'm on the Film House website right now, and it's actually quite stressful because they say how many tickets are left.
Oh, yeah, this is great.
So there are currently 2 tickets left for Knives Out, which is crazy. And Hamnet is fully sold out. So people have definitely been on it. Things that I am really excited for, like Knives Out. I think that'll be really, really fun. I am really excited for Hamnet, mostly because everyone says it's good.
That's a shocker.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this film because it looks good, and then I've heard people say that it is good.
But then I guess, I actually didn't think it looks good. That's what I mean.
Okay.
I don't think the book sounds that interesting. It's not really a premise that I'm super that interested in. I don't really love, historical fiction. I don't super love, historical films. But yeah, people said that it's incredible. So I'm very, very hyped for that. There's the new Kelly Reichardt with Josh O'Connor called The Mastermind, which
trailer looks very good.
Yeah.
It also looks like not just the lens, but the entire cast are covered in Vaseline the entire time. It's very, very blurry.
It's so hazy as a film. But yeah, I'm really excited for that. I think... Oh, sorry. I just tried to go on the LFF website, and I think the ticket sales are today because it's put me in a queue of 32,000 people.
Never mind. I can read out some other ones if you want.
History of Sound. Is History of Sound also at LFF, I think? The Oliver Herman.
Yeah, I don't think that's on tour, though.
No, it's not on tour. No.
The ones on tour you might be interested in is It Was Just an Accident, the new Panahi film.
Yes. Yeah. Very interested in that. Really, really hyped for that.
Begonia.
Less interested in that.
I've heard it's good.
People always say though that Yorgos Lanthimos is good, and I don't know.
The Ammar El Nasri, Pierce Brosnan, Nassim Hamed biopic.
Oh yeah,
which is really, I think, a flip of a coin whether that's going to be good or absolute dog shit.
Yeah.
I can't see that on the GFT's lineup.
It's definitely on a Film House Giant.
Okay. So they're different from each site. I didn't realise that. Frankenstein, which should be interesting.
Frankenstein should be fun, was filmed in Edinburgh, partly.
Yep. The other one I'm really looking forward to is Pillion.
Yes.
This kind of dom-sub relationship between, what's his name? Harry
Melling, isn't it? And Alexander Skarsgård. Yeah. I'm really excited for that too. Because I think it's based on a book, but I think the book is more...
It's Adam Mans-Jones, I think.
It's Fitzcarraldo. But the book is more set in a particular period in history, and I think they've brought this to the modern day, I think. So I'm very curious about that one as well.
So it's good. I think it's better than last year. I think for some reason, the last year's lineup, we didn't get the good big hitters. But I think they've given the provinces the big hitters this year.
The provinces.
Which is nice.
You know, it's. I like it when London deigns to do something nice for the rest of the country.
Yeah, I think it's London Film Festival is slowly becoming the British Film Festival. I think it's sponsored by BFI. They get all the money. I do have a slight resistance. I do kind of wish that London didn't take all the best films. It does annoy me. Like, I really wish some of these films could have just played at Edinburgh.
Well, there was the infamous After Sun debacle.
Yeah.
When After Sun played at the Edinburgh Film Festival and then got retconned out of being the UK premiere because London wanted it to be the UK premiere.
Yeah,
so then they
really
said,
funny.
that was I remember that day on twitter.com very well because they were like, they said that the BFI had just unilaterally declared Scottish independence by saying that the Scottish premiere didn't count as the UK one.
But also think, like, obviously these are the big kind of headline galas, but like, you do have things like, there's a film like called Surat, which was like, it's amazing. It played at Cannes. It's just buried in the like LFF program. It's not even like one of the headline films, and it's like that would kill at Edinburgh or Glasgow. History of Sound as well is meant to be incredible. It's just in the program somewhere.
Yeah, that is the thing. I am sorry. It's going to take me 47 minutes apparently to get onto the LFF website, but I'm trying to think. I think the new Julie Ducournau is also just in one of the strands.
Alpha,
like, it's not even in, like, it's not a gala. It's just like buried somewhere in.
So,
which is crazy.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm not in distribution. I don't understand the minds of PRs. I don't know why they let all the films just come out in October and November when they could have spread them out throughout the year. But I think, show some of these at Edinburgh. Give some of them to Edinburgh and let them have a kind of bigger life there than just be like buried beneath all the kind of glitz and glamour of London. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. Or save them for Glasgow.
Either way, send them our way and we'll talk about them on this podcast. And that's PR that you can't put a price on. Don't even try. I think that is just under an hour of podcasting. So good job, everyone. Thank you, Jamie.
Cheers, Pierre.
Thank you, Anahi.
Thank you.
Our next episode is going to be our 100th episode of this podcast.
Oh my god.
So I think
we're old.
Yeah, we're old. We're tired. But we do have some. Well, basically, the next one should hopefully be a fun one. I don't.
What about this one? What's this? John Lubbock?
Well, hey. Did I say this one wasn't? Did I say unlike this battle of horse shit? No, the next one should be a fun one, much as this one has been. But yeah, we're trying to work out what would be an appropriate thing to do because it's also going to coincide with the 20th anniversary edition of the magazine. Mm-hmm. So there is definitely scope to do something.
With numbers.
It said pointing at Jamie, but I don't know what that is. So once we turn the microphones off, we can potentially try and work that out. But if you have enjoyed this fun one, then do tell people and tell them to listen and to come back in 2 weeks' time for the 100th episode of The Cine Skinny. I've been Peter, this has been The Cine Skinny, and goodbye. Oh, also Ellie will be back for the next one.
Yes.
Yeah, so it went 59 minutes without acknowledging the fact that Ellie's not here. Sorry, Ellie. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.